Lots of people never even thought about the reality of UFOs or even extraterrestrial life being a thing. But also from my own research and even from just asking people in the street, most of them do not believe if aliens were a reality, that they would actually be aggressive. Is it possible we carry some inner knowledge inside of us that lets us know this?
Very possible. That is completely possible. It is something that you are aware of deep inside of you, because you all can tap into that higher knowledge through your higher self, into the group consciousness in a sense. Now understand that, if you will, for some people, as they choose to play out certain themes, you could say, in this incarnation, in this human life form exploration, doubting that we may be of friendly nature can actually add to the type of exploration they have signed up for. People who are easily frightened by all kinds of storylines use this idea, this what you might perhaps call a characteristic, but what is chosen, you could say, because they always do have the free choice again and again and again to create themselves, their personalities in that way or not, to continue to create themselves with these personality threads or not. They can use it as a type of fuel. They can use these interpretations as a type of fuel which will eventually press upon them to such a degree. This goes for any type of person choosing to be something that they not really are. Being in a function you actually dislike, being in a relationship that you feel or know deep down in your heart doesn't actually work, things like that. Everybody who chooses to do a thing like that builds up an amount of pressure, you could say, upon themselves that will eventually, you could say, trigger, if you look at it in the more forceful side of the spectrum, or you could say invite, if you look at it from the more love-based point of view. But this amount of stress, this friction of so much information that is all representing the not the real them, will eventually push on them so much that it triggers or invites them to let it eventually all go and just relax into who they really know they are. And for some people, that leads to what you call burnout. For some people, that goes through the idea of what you may call depression. But eventually, what it is inviting them to find within themselves is who they know they really are. And whenever anybody tells anybody with negative intent, a storyline that is intended to trigger fear in another person, you all have an inner mechanism, you all have a radar that registers whether that is serving you or not. But if you're playing out a theme, so this is what we're saying, if you're choosing to play out a theme from your soul level, where you feel you can use that and you like to adopt it because it fits in your game as you're pretending to be, as if the fear is keeping you safe in that way whilst it really isn't. And we're not saying fear can never actually keep you safe in physical reality, because sometimes fear is a great call to action when you're in the middle of a road and cars are coming from both directions. You may want to move out of that road. And that would be a functional fear. But we're talking a dysfunctional fear. We're talking a manipulative fear here. And if somebody offers you that as a gift, some people will use it, choose to use it, embrace it as a truth because it aligns with the path that they're exploring. But eventually the goal is the same, to find their inner true self. And for others, they may immediately feel that radar go, not serving, this is not serving. And then they can consciously go through whatever that triggers in them. Is there now a repulsion towards the person who was the messenger? Or can they find compassion for that too? Can they see their own role as a creator of that version of reality where they have, in one way or another, more deliberate or subconscious, created into their version of reality or allowed into their version of reality a person who comes to deliberately attempt to manipulate them? How do they choose to play with that? And that may very well beautifully fit into their own soul's exploration in this human form, on this stage. And so you can feel love for all of you. You can come from a point of view that sees that some people will just, quote unquote, seem to buy into anything. And you can see them using that as fuel for their journey. And then you can meet people who are overly skeptic and don't believe anything to be true, which is the other end of the stick. And then there is the middle. And then you will see how every single type of person is using their own radar, is using their own little inner guiding compass to eventually get that little arm moved to their own natural true north. You're all in the process of fine-tuning. You're all in the process of peeling that metaphorical onion back to the core, where you register truth for you, real resonance, enthusiasm, empathy, compassion, curiosity, creativity, and so on. Or suppression, negativity, manipulation, and so forth. What do you choose to navigate into and why is always the question, which is fun and can be an exploration and a joy to ask yourself. What an adventure.
Mm-hmm. Sure is. And thus how the media presents these ideas regarding ET contact, for instance by labeling it as a threat, influence the literal unfolding of disclosure?
It depends on the perceiver of that storyline. So let's take it really personal in this way, because it is really. Mm-hmm. If you as a person observe the media conveying a certain message to the public as you observe it in your version of reality, listening? Mm-hmm. And you respond to that in a certain way, which is, for instance, with resistance or anger, then, as we have explained many times, you will receive reflections of what you choose to believe to be true about what you observe. So what you put in is what you get back. So then in your version of reality, including the entire collective that you're choosing to line up with, you will see all of that reflect back to you as the, in that sense, sole creator of that version of reality. Bits and pieces of information that you can use to spiritually evolve most with. Could you follow along?
Yeah.
So you will give yourself, in all cases, what you need. Now this may very well, most definitely, influence or appear to influence the unfolding of disclosure, now talking about ET contact, with you, or better said, with the version of the collective that you're choosing to be focused at in a specific way through a specific set of glasses. So this is still often misunderstood. But even though you co-create the world you're believing to be on, you are also still the sole creator of the dream, the reality dream that you're having. It is this and that, not this or that. So you're creating together with a collective that seamlessly connects with, meets the ideas that you have, the storyline you're telling yourself perfectly, seamlessly. You're co-creating with them, and within that collective, every single individual is a real person, and their experiences of that same co-created reality are real and unique as much as you are having your own experiences. But since you're shifting billions of times per second through versions of reality that all have their own storylines entailed, and since you from the innermost of your being, from your inner being, you create all of that, you meet up with the people that fit into that global journey as you're laying it out for yourself one step at a time. Since that is eventually all you, this question, whether the way wherein media paints a picture of the idea of open contact and disclosure towards the masses, whether that would influence, quote unquote, the unfolding of disclosure and ET contact, it literally depends on what you believe to be true about the media doing that. If you can look at that as interesting and not feel attacked by it, and understanding that you're all moving through your own evolution, and understanding that also the people who work with the media will have their own motivational reasons for saying what they're saying. And if you understand that what you're hearing on the television and the radio and what have you, what you see on your internet, that all of that is just the flimsiest top layer of what is actually happening down there in your entire collective, how you are all spiritually evolving, how a lot of information is not being shared there at all, and how eventually the real representation of the masses is just the masses as you created in your version of reality, is just living amongst it, being in there and looking at it through the perspective you desire. As your Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. And if you feel that a certain game is not your game to play, don't play it. If you feel it drains you, don't go there. Focus on what brings you joy. Like we have said so many times, and with us our brothers and sisters from other hybrid family members, as you know, YahYel and Sassani, like we have said so many times before. Follow your highest excitement, your deepest enthusiasm in every single moment as best as you can, with zero insistence as where it ought to lead you, and whilst remaining in a positive point of view, remaining with a positive outlook on life. And everything else will fall into place for you in such a way that you can continue to use it in a flowing manner on that high vibrational wave that you will then be creating for yourself in your version of reality. Everything else, and if anything in there doesn't call you to be a part of changing it, quote unquote, remember, you do not change the world that you are living on. You shift to a version of Earth that is already representative for what you know in your deeper beingness can be. And you're allowing it to crystallize around you and into your perceptional reality when you surrender into that knowingness.
So, what is then the best way to respond to incorrect information given by the media? Especially when your whole environment thinks what is said to be true.
Remain in touch with your higher self. Take care of your inner balance and continue to act on your highest excitement. Follow the formula. It will navigate you through it in the most effortless way. You will then be open to read from synchronicities what would be the best next action for you, or what roads have a dead end. And whilst you observe others potentially choosing to believe in a version of reality that you do not prefer or even believe to be true, you can, what you call, hold space for them. Do not judge them, because as we said before, you will move through your own processes in your own divine timing. You are all one eventually. The idea of separation is an illusion. You can find each other despite these ideas of differences.
Next question from the viewer. You already explained a bit on how when you show yourself to us that it is an invitation from you to us to open up for contact, but is it true that used to be a type of non-interference rule among ETs towards contact with the Earth?
Well, first of all, can you repeat the first sentence, the first part of the question?
That you already explained that when you show yourself to us, it is an invitation for contact.
Well, in a sense, it actually shows you that contact has already been made. So the fundament is already there, like we said in the beginning. So a person who has a sighting can rest assured they're already in contact. It is just an emphasizing of the fact that they are, whether they think they're perceiving it for the first time or not in their version of reality. That's a different, you could say, part of the storyline. But that aside, there was what you might understand a non-interference guideline. It stood or it held up roughly until the end of your year of 2012. And that is when things changed and started changing very rapidly, also on the face of your planet. We are now allowed to show ourselves a lot more bluntly. We could theoretically just land in the backyard of the White House, but we're not. And the reason that we're not is, first of all, most importantly, most prominently, because we understand the journey that you're making. And we would still interfere from a respect point of view with you in a way that we feel is not respectful if we did that. You see, do you understand where we're coming from?
Yeah.
So the respect is for us in understanding that you have a spiritual evolutionary journey to make, that you have chosen to make that. So depending on the energy frequency that you hold, we will wait until there is a very clear, overwhelming yes before we go that public. Now, we're not saying that in between there won't be some and eventually many encounters with certain individuals that are truly ready, and we understand are truly ready to have these type of connections with on your earth before full disclosure. And now we mean physical and public landings and so forth, before that takes place. But it will be like pioneering. It will be like some front runners will be anchoring that energy frequency in usually, first of all, remote locations of your planet, and then eventually a little bit more inhabited locations, and then perhaps eventually into cities before it becomes global in that sense. So there's a lot of little in-between steps that are part of the general line of disclosure unfolding, are in process of unfolding at this moment. You see.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah.
All right.
I think it does. And what can we do to open up the doors for ET disclosure in our own lives?
Well, like we said before, following the formula really does help to allow everything to fall into divine place and a divine timing and with flow and ease, whilst bringing up whatever is still important for you to look at, to integrate and potentially transform or let go of along the way, for you to shift into that version of reality where open contact with you in that way can take place in an effortless and joyful manner. And besides that, and we've spoken on that topic in depth in the last event of your live stream with the title Disclosure, 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 being super obvious about the topic. We have spoken about that in depth there when we addressed the overall energy frequency of disclosure being transparency. And so if you have a heartfelt desire in you to see more openness in communication in the world, quote unquote, outside of you, then you can lay the fundament for that in your own life. You can open up where you feel you've been holding back. You can step up where you feel you've been playing small. And you can invite yourself to look at consciously or unconsciously recreated, quote unquote, patterns, as you look at it linearly speaking, in your life as you create it from the now, where you sense you've been, like we said, holding back, not acting on things that truly call you. And then see if you can allow yourself to act on that, and you will be more transparent. You will be more of the real you. And the more of the real you are, the more reflections of realness from other people in your surroundings and from the version of reality as you create it in every single here and now moment will then come back to you, will be able to be perceived by you. Do you understand?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. It was our joy and pleasure to have this interaction, co-creation with you in this here and now. We wish you a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste.
Namaste.